Yo, what's up, boys and girls? Swolelax, and I'm back at it again with another video. This time something just a little bit different today. Hey, we are here with another Elemental Hero tier list. My hair is crazy and wild, and we are going to be going over part 2 of our hero tier list, the fusion monsters, the extra deck monsters for the Elemental Hero archetype. Now, if you guys have not seen it, I highly recommend checking out links in the description down below for the part 1 of this tier list, and that's going to be the main deck monsters. We went over every single main deck hero monster except for one, which we'll get to in a moment. But if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like. And if this video gets just 50 likes, I'll be dropping a secret Cyber Dragon video. That's right, some Cyber Dragon hype for you guys. If you guys are excited for Cyber Dragons, all we need is 50 likes, and I'll drop that secret Cyber Dragon video that I've been working on. Some of you guys might be fans of it. If you guys like my old school Cyber Dragon videos, I actually think it's pretty good. Now, other than that though, if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are almost at 2,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for your love and support. And let me know down in the comment section down below let me know what you guys think of this tier list or my part 1 tier list. Let me know what you guys think of heroes in general. Do you guys think that the E-heroes can make a comeback with things like Infernal Divisor being so good into the new hero deck? Anyways, let's go ahead and just jump right into this tier list real quick. Table 500, low tier, mid tier, high tier, and top tiers, how we do it here, separating out each of the hero monsters into their own respective categories. And I'm going to start out with some classic heroes. We're going to be ranking some classic hero fusions that rely upon the original subset of elemental heroes. And let's go ahead and start off with some table 500 and low tier options. I'm going to go with some nice ones like Darkbright here. Darkbright, maybe even Necroid Shaman, and of course we have something like Mariner. Now, I actually think Mariner might be a little better than these two in specific, just because it has a little more potential. There's actually an OTK surrounding Mariner, which I think really cool. Plus, instant fusion target, you can use it as a warrior extender, and it has a pretty neat little effect that you can activate as well. That being said, Darkbright, yeah, you can do piercing damage. I love the artwork, and it has a neat little destruction effect, but it's pretty weak. It's a pretty weak monster for what you're using for summoning it. And in addition to that, too, Necroid Shaman is neat because it's spot removal on the field, kind of similar to some other of the classic elemental hero cards, but unfortunately this card is not that great because it's also recurring your value for your opponent. And a lot of decks right now are relying so much on that graveyard and have effects that, you know, activate when they're out of the graveyard, get special summon onto the field, all that jazz. So sure, you might be removing a threat that's immediately a problem. However, you might also be creating something that's much, much worse by summoning out something else from the graveyard. So, decent card itself. I love the card artwork, especially for all of these, and mainly for these ones in particular, but low tier for sure. Now, they're nowhere close to these table 500 picks we have coming up. Things like Inferno. Elemental Hero Inferno is just a baffling card to me. This card gets nothing except for gains 1,000 attack when it battles a water monster. Thanks, Konami. Very cool. This thing actually uses 2 pretty decent cards for its fusion materials. Oddly specific cards too, outside of its normal original Elemental Hero subsects. It uses Heat and Lady Heat, but I could not pass the chance to talk about it inside these low tier and table 500 picks because it is so bad. I don't get it. It's not even that big of attack points either, and I'd take the other ones too, even though they're not that strong. And this one has a pretty decent artwork. I like it somewhat, not necessarily as much as some of the other low tiers, but honestly, man, it's nothing special for sure. And it might even have the worst effect like in the entirety of the table 500s, including that actually. Speaking of different effects, and I'm gonna even go table 500 with this one, even though it arguably could be even low tiers. Elemental Hero Tempest. Now, Tempest is sick artwork, probably top tier artwork. We're going to go there we go. Top tier artwork. If you want to start these things by artwork specifically, almost number 1. This thing is super cool. However, summoning conditions, Bubbleman, Avion, and Sparkman, and its effect really isn't that great. Plus, doesn't even have, it only has 2,800 attack points. You can get to that 2,800 and, you know, hit over things, but some of the other monsters that you can summon out for much less material and much less setup have more attack points anyways. Sure, its destruction effect thing is pretty neat, but overall it's a neat little gimmick that you have to turbo out, and overall not necessarily my cup of tea. Cool card, but not necessarily my cup of tea. Speaking of cool card, but ultimately is table 500, let's go ahead and talk about my boy, Mudball Man. Mudball Man is super cool. I personally like Mudball Man just a little bit because I think its design is sick. Look at this big tank. He's a thick boy. 3,000 defense point booty, only 1,900 attack, so nothing crazy on there. But we played this this guy in our GX Tag Force streams, and he is just like Mystic Mind, just no attacking, nothing can get over this guy. However, I do think that the bulk nowadays, especially, he's just a vanilla monster with a large booty. So he's nice. However, you can get out much easier things from the main deck, and also, especially nowadays, not really that great. Even classic Mobile Man, though. Classic decks with Mobile Man. Not really that good. Bubble Man and Clayman is also kind of a neat little thing, too. Again, we know Bubble Man is a high tier in terms of the hero tier list. However, this card is Table 500 Faux Show. Table 500 to the Fundo Faux Show, though. So, next things we're going to talk about inside of the Table 500 tier, we might actually move up a little more towards the low tier again. This time, sad to say, another Clayman fusion, Rampart Blaster. I like Rampart Blaster. Rampart Blaster just a little bit. Now, I like the fact that it actually has a beefy defense points, 2,500 defense points, which is pretty nice, and also it can attack your opponent directly, but it's halved for its attack points, which is pretty decent. You can keep it in a defense position and still do damage to your opponent, similar to like Super Heavy Samurais before Super Heavy Samurais, which is actually pretty neat. Again, love its design, the armored Burstanatrix, plus the little like the shield with the gun, super cool. I love that a lot. The turret it has on it, cool design. Not really that great, not really that practical to summon out. So overall, just okay. Now, I think when we're talking about other classic heroes, one that's actually really interesting to me that I actually might even put inside of the mid tier, or if not maybe the high of low tier, is Terra Firma. I like Terra Firma just a little bit because I think it's really interesting that this card was more or less the card that Jaden used inside the manga and not necessarily the anime. Really great, really cool design. And overall, in terms of classic heroes, things like Ocean and Woodsman being on there, really cool, like, overall. I like him a lot. Now, do I like him more than Flame Wingman? Heck nah, dude, get him out of here. But it is neat that he kind of looks like Ultraman as well. I do dig that. I do dig that quite a bit. Next, Table 500, Electrum. Now, I'm putting Electrum in the top of Table 500 specifically because he has such convoluted summoning conditions. The original Elemental Heroes all combined to make this super sick card. I like his idea though, shuffle everything back from the banished pile to the deck. So already a super gimmicky card. However, if you have set up in your graveyard, you can use Miracle Fusion to summon them out. And actually, this card has an FTK, an Elemental Hero FTK. That's right, if you can set it up, even in the current Master Rule 5 era. We might actually play around with that for a little bit. Let me know if you guys want to see that FTK. But Electrum FTK is just a gimmick. And oh, it's so fun to pull off. And it's super cool. It's an actual monster. But this thing, I don't know. Its artwork is also kind of neat. I like the gold. I like how he's just like big and bulky. But overall, I mean, he's a fun card to try out and play, but not really that great other than that. So that's where I'm going to put him. Unfortunately, it's going to be in the Table 500 tier. And unfortunately, a lot of the Elemental Hero monsters from the classic era, and even some of the ones that aren't necessarily classic, do kind of lie in this low tier to Table 500 range. However, the next one we're going to be talking about here is going to be more of the mid-tier range. Now, funny enough, I actually put inside the mid-tier range a lot of the generic Elemental Hero monsters that use Elemental Hero plus insert attribute. So generic Elemental Hero plus attribute, great great targets for things like I don't know how to put it, essentially like Super Poly, things like that, where you can kind of use spot removal for your opponent, but also use your own cards for them. It is also pretty great. But in the mid-tier zone, I actually might even put things like Elemental Hero Gaia, things like Elemental Hero, I was about to say Master Tornado, Elemental Hero Tornado, and even things like Nova Master. Now, I think Nova Master might be a little more beneficial than these two. Now, that's actually even arguable. I might even put that below it now I'm really thinking about it, because the attack modulation thing is cool, especially for OTKing your opponent, and especially nowadays. But I think the drawing effect is also pretty great. Now, my unfortunate part that I think that is kind of conflicting for me is that the Elemental Heroes have always had battle effects, where, you know, things like Grand Merge, for example, is a great effect. Wow, that's amazing. But unfortunately activates inside of the battle phase, and also you have to destroy a monster usually to activate that effect. Unlike some of the other Elemental Hero monsters which are in the high tier and top tier, things like Nova Master or even things like Grand Merge, being a mid tier kind of makes sense, because it's essentially like, okay, you can draw a card, cool, but you have to destroy a monster to do that, which is also pretty reliant on your opponent, but hey, he's okay, especially if you use him for things like spot removal for Super Poly inside of, like say, a Salamangreat mirror match, Salamangreat match, or something like that. So overall, not too bad. And, oh, actually, you know what's funny? We almost forgot to mention another low-tier monster, and that's going to be Elemental Hero Steam Healer. Steam Healer also might be table 500, to be fair. Steam Healer has a weird effect because it's a classic Elemental Hero, Bubble Man, Ember Sternatrix fusion. I actually don't really like his card art that much. Another instant fusion turret, kind of like Mariner. However, its effect is that it heals you if you destroy a monster by battle. And the problem is, and yes, we can say, oh, but add Honest Neos to it, and it's actually kind of neat. Not necessarily true. This card only has 1,800 attack points, which, hey, don't get me wrong, if you want to heal by just a little bit, cool. You're going into time, you need that little damage, whatever. But Steam Healer's not getting over anything by itself. And I'm not going to waste that fusion, that polymerization on just Steam Healer alone. You know, I guess best case scenario, you can use it like Mariner with an instant fusion target for material, but whoa, this card is pretty rough. Also, speaking of kind of rough, pretty rough, funny enough, we have Elemental Hero Core. I actually think Core is in the top of the mid-tier section. He's just okay. The funny part about him is that there's actually a card that does his job better now, and that's Vision Hero Trinity. Vision Hero Trinity allows for so many FTKs, so many OTKs to get over your opponent's monsters on board. If you bait out some negations, slap a poly down, and just go nuts. I mean, the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still played for life points, so Elemental Hero Core is nice because it's a 3 monster hero summon, 3 Elemental Hero fusion summon, and he's also a pretty big boy once he does battle. However, the secondary effect to summon out a fusion monster is probably just a little bit better, but I don't know. Most times you're not really getting that off either. I'm pretty sure it's a win effect, so you can sometimes miss timing, but cool artwork as well. Again, love the Ultraman-inspired art. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about another controversial pick. I personally do not think that things like Phoenix Enforcer, probably in the high tier maybe, and also Shining Phoenix Enforcer are any sorts of good. Here's my reasoning behind this. I personally think that the destruction effect for this thing was pretty decent back in the day. Don't get me wrong. You'll go up against a Cyber Dragon and it's like, boom, 2100 damage for my my -2 monster, but also, you know, it doesn't get destroyed by battle. Pretty helpful, pretty useful. However, I personally think that the biggest thing that this thing has going for it is its artwork. Super great artwork. I love these two specifically. However, I think the burn damage that things like Flame Wingman and Shining Flare Wingman offer are just significantly better, especially nowadays for more of an OTK style deck. You guys have been watching our live streams, watching how we've been testing out here. We've summoned Elemental Hero Flame Wingman a couple times and just kind of gone after and done some massive burn damage. Love that. Super useful, and I think these cards were maybe a little more beneficial back in the day, but now, not so much. I'm going to put them in the low tier here for sure. Unfortunate too, because their card artwork is actually phenomenal. Next, we're going to move on to another mid-tier. We're going to go on to another classic hero, going to Elemental Hero Wild Edge. Now, Wild Edge, I actually think might be even worse than these guys, potentially, just because they don't necessarily have the modulations, but he's essentially just a worse Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and the fact that you can hit over your opponent's monsters as many times as you want. Essentially, this guy can attack opponent's monsters as much as it wants. Unfortunately, that doesn't do piercing damage, so that's kind of where the drawback for me lands, where it's like, sure, something like Pentastag, which again, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno connection, will help this card out, essentially OTK and help OTK, or something added on, like kind of gimmicky, so table 500-esque, being Heated Heart, which gives it piercing damage plus an attack point boost. So this guy can actually squeak out some games when it wants to, but I feel like overall, that's just kind of, again, a little bit of gimmick. I do like the fact, though, that it does help clear boards. So in terms of classic Elemental Hero monsters, pretty good. Overall, low mid-tier is where I would hang that hat. Now, speaking of classic Elemental Hero monsters, I feel like I'm saying that a lot, you know, when I talk about a card, I'm like, speaking of this, we're going to go ahead and maybe I'll just find a new transition. How about that? We're going to go ahead and talk about a high tier, the first high tier, controversially speaking. I think Wild Wingman is significantly good. It's funny enough, this card is a non-once per turn discard effect that you can destroy spells and trap cards on your opponent's side of the field, gain that value, 1900 attack and pretty decent defense points for Avian and also for Wildheart. I actually dig this card quite a bit. I think what's really funny is that remembering a lot of these hero cards, a lot of the classic hero cards, a lot of the best ones, things like this, or even things like Thunder Giant, and Plasma Vice, wherever he just went, there we go, Plasma Vice. These things actually really do help out your OTKs and also for like a little bit of control on spot removal. Thunder Giant destroying monsters and Plasma Vice destroying monsters as well. Sure, you have to discard cards to do that with. However, I feel like that's just so, that even for, these things are ahead of their time, essentially what I'm trying to say, that ahead of their time. Is essentially what I'm trying to get at with this. Ahead of their time in the way you can just like discard cards, boom, destroy. Phenomenal. I really like these cards a lot. I think their designs are super cool. Obviously, classic Elemental Heroes, I'm just super big fan of, but it helps that these things actually have useful effects that you can use. So turboing out these cards, even in classic decks, might actually be pretty good. In fact, even some casual GOAT decks play Thunder Giant as some spot removal with things like Sparkman, King of the Swamp, or even Clayman, which is pretty helpful. So I'm always a fan of that for sure. Moving on, I'm gonna actually place, I think I kind of forgot about this inside of the elemental generic ones. The dark one, Escuriado, into the mid tier as well. I'm not really, again, one of those ones that it's actually attack modulation, but it's even worse because it's just, you gains 100 for each one in the graveyard. Now, it is dark, so it's a little more utilitous. It's actually a little more utility based than the other ones because it's, different attributes. Dark's a super common attribute, but you probably want to summon something like Starving Infusion Dragon or even Predaplant Dragostopelia instead of this if it's something like a super poly target. So I'm not a huge fan. It's an okay card. Mid-tier is where that's going to lie for me. Moving on. Speaking of another mid-tier, nice transition there, Swolelax, we have Grand Merge. Now, Grand Merge, funny enough, is definitely the best mid-tier inside this entire thing. Again, I think its summoning conditions being the 2 normal fusion monsters is actually pretty neat, and you can get some pretty nice, not necessarily gimmicks per se, of summoning out things. Nice little summons you can get out things like Nebula Neos, Cosmo Neos, or even the other Elemental Hero Neos fusions on top of just the Elemental fusions. Now, I feel like with this card specifically though, like I said with something like Nova Master, the fact that you actually have to attack your opponent's cards and rely so much on that for this card to gain value and to be that good is a problem. In addition to that too, this card gains attack based off the levels of the normal monsters that you send for fusion material, and then you have to attack over a monster. So you kind of are playing this little game where it's like, if this card does not destroy anything or can't destroy anything, sure, you have Honest Neos, but regardless, this card can kind of just sit there. Now, great card artwork. I love this card artwork so much. I remember when this card was announced, I was super, super hyped. And it's actually not a bad card overall, especially from Modern Heroes sense. But overall, it's just okay. Mid-tier is where I put that, maybe even low-high tier. But I personally think that the value gaining and the destruction and spot removal of the other high tier, the classic Elemental Heroes, again, main phase effects that are pretty useful. I then think I'm going to move on to another one of the high tiers, and this might come to a shock to you guys. And you might be looking at this list being like Swolelax, you're going to be placing things like Flame, Wingman, and Shining, Flare, Wingman inside of high tier. You bet your ass I'm doing that. So here's the reason why. Again, like I said with Phoenix Enforcer and Shining Phoenix Enforcer, these two cards having their burn damage and Shining Flare having its like attack gaining advantage is really, really nice. Now, the burn damage you do to your opponents with these two cards can help for OTKs, and this thing actually has some modern use. Things like Infernal Divisor and other cards like that help turbo out these cards in particular, Honest Neos to help boost up attack points if needed, is very, very helpful. Again, we went on live stream and have some of these guys out relatively easily, especially with turboing out, and it's actually really nice. It's super hype. You don't really need a lot to run it either. Now, yeah, sure, you might be running these two bricks inside of the form of Aeon Verstantrix, but you can use those cards inside of the deck too as material, or if you need to as well, just for discard fodder for things like Ferris. So a Modern Hero deck definitely has space for these cards, especially for its OTK-ness. I personally really like this, and I love the fact that you can play these cards and they're actually useful inside of 2020. What a fan. I personally, again, think Flame Wingman is one of my favorite cards, and it's one of the best cards from the era. It's super iconic, incredibly cool. I need my hands on that Brazil playmat. I need my hands on it. Because it's Flame Wingman, of course, I gotta get it out. So, Flame Wingman in high tier, I'm not sorry for putting it in high tier whatsoever. Moving on though, let's talk about some high tiers and top tiers to kind of round out and finish this out. So, let's go and talk about Elemental Hero, The Shining, and Elemental Hero, Sunriser. So, I'm putting top tier Sunriser as our first one and high tier for The Shining because one thing I really like about these two is they kind of go hand in hand. You can use Miracle Fusion to kind of get out something like the Shining, from something like Sunrise. So Sunrise comes out on the board, you can search something like Miracle Fusion. Also, its destruction effect is actually really great. I love the fact that it's destruction that's on your other Elemental Hero cards. It's attack boosting, so it kind of does a double whammy there as well. In addition to that, really generic, just 2 hero monsters with different elements. Love that. And it gains value because you can summon out another hero monster, usually a thing in the form of Absolute Zero or the Shining. Now, the Shining itself is really cool because when it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, or when it's sent to the graveyard, then you can add back Elemental Hero monsters from your banished pile to your hand, so we're gaining a little bit of value. And if you Miracle Fusion for this card, you can add those things back, like Honest Neos, and also, let's say, like an Elemental Hero Stratos that you use for the Miracle Fusion to get this card out. I like this card a lot, and it's been seeing a lot more play too, especially with things like last format as a super poly target. I think actually Spiral Sleeper Agent is a light monster, so that actually is a pretty cool tech overall. Moving on though, we have our final fusion monster we're going to be talking about on this tier list. Let me just double check real quick, that way I don't get some comments about it. And that is going to be Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, which in my personal opinion is probably the best Elemental Hero monster, fusion monster, even potentially the best Elemental Hero monster inside of the entirety of the archetype. So this card is insane. Not only is it ahead of its time in terms of destruction and board wiping, very, very useful in things like Totally Awesome Heroes back in the day, and also even in a current format with things like Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. And Sunrise, having you access to this card is just super free. Not only can you then use Elemental Hero, Polymerization for Elemental Hero Sunrise, and then you use that Miracle Fusion you get off of Sunrise to summon this card with the Liquid Soldier, this card nets you advantage more times than not because it destroys monsters when it leaves the field, sends to the graveyard, banished, that kind of thing. Obviously, the new master rules, so there's rules with sending like the extra deck. I digress. But essentially, things like Liquid Soldier summon out this card with, you are drawing cards, you're gaining advantage, and then also this card gets a sweet attack boost, not only from Sunrise or other cards you might have with it, but it also gains it when you have water monsters on the field. Pretty insane card overall. I'm a huge fan. This card can either play defensive and have some pressure that it gives to your opponent, being like, okay, if I remove it from the board, it's going to board wipe my monster, so I got to play around that. And if you play in defense position, that way it's like not going to get lightning stormed, also really great too. So this card being a walking Raigeki is by far, one of the best hero monsters to ever grace this earth. Super great design too. I love its design. Incredibly cool. Absolute Zero is absolutely insane and absolutely nuts, and I'm not sorry for that either. So this is going to be my Elemental Hero tier list. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like. Want to see more? Please subscribe to my videos. Come in the pipeline. Stay tuned for that if you would like to. Again, we're so close to 200 subscribers. Share this video with a friend if you guys like this video. And if this video gets 50 likes, I'll drop that secret Cyber Dragon video. Tell me what you guys think of this tier list inside of the comment section down below. Again, top tier, high tier, mid tier, low tier, table 500. Maybe if I'm wrong about a few of these things, maybe things like Nova Master could be a little bit higher. I'm not quite sure. Maybe even things like, Wild Wingman could be even lower. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you guys think that Absolute Zero is top tier as well? What kind of hero decks are you playing in this format? I'd love to know. I will see you guys later, though, with another video sometime really soon. But that's all I got to say about this. Peace out.